Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you, Mel, and thank you, Mr. Gambas, for the kind introduction. I will present the Towards Sustainable Mining program in quite a bit of detail. Hopefully, you will come from this discussion with a good understanding of what it is and how it works. Probably everybody in this room has a different idea of what sustainable mining is. In Canada, the industry, the Mining Association of Canada and all their member companies have decided to become very specific in an interpretation of sustainable mining, and you will see their interpretation through my presentation. So the Towards Sustainable Mining program is a very specific performance measurement system by which the companies who are members of the Mining Association of Canada measure their performance in achieving social and environmental goals in particular, and in reporting on their achievements publicly. So for the CESMAN project, our interest is to expose you to the operations of this program so that you can consider and you can evaluate whether this is a program that could make sense in the Mongolian context and for the Mongolian mining sector, be that the large companies, the medium-sized companies, or the small companies who are members of your mining association. So the first question that needs to be asked and answered is, why did the Canadian industry adopt the TSM program? You will understand, of course, that this was not adopted out of a sense of altruism or just simply being nice or good corporate citizens. The companies in Canada, like the companies around the world, have a responsibility to their shareholders to meet their bottom line financial and corporate objectives. However, around the year 2005, the industry realized that they could not achieve those corporate and financial objectives without paying much more serious attention to the environmental and the social dimensions of the mining sector. It was a hard business decision, recognizing that without taking these issues seriously, it would be more difficult to get operating licenses, more difficult to get access to exploration areas, and more difficult to get the support of local communities where mines would operate. And the first two pressure points on the industry were community engagement and improving environmental stewardship. Later, as everyone in this room knows, the international priority of climate change became more important. There's a second significant reason why TSM was adopted by the industry in Canada. They recognized that if they were not proactive in dealing with social and environmental issues, they would have to respond to increasing demands from government and increased regulation. And so the proactive choice was to start doing this anyway, rather than waiting for the government responding to citizen demands to force them to take action in these areas. The third reason is it's simply a matter of good management and good performance measurement by being able to demonstrate and in concrete terms measure the industry's performance in achieving environmental and social goals. They have the tools to actually know if they're making improvements, what those improvements are costing, and what those improvements, the benefits that they can achieve from those measurements. And the final point I want to make in this context is that it was a strategic choice of risk management for the industry as a whole. They recognized that perhaps some of the very large companies had the performance measurement systems, had the strategies to improve their environmental performance. They have a very positive track record, but the poorer track record of some of the other companies in the country could have a bad impact on the entire industry, including the big companies. So they recognized that at the level of the industry, it was strategic to do an initiative that not just included the big companies with the greater management resources, but to include the entire industry as a resource management strategy. So the TSM initiative has a number of tools and practical steps that I will be describing in order to implement the program. But I would like first to describe what it is the industry is actually trying to achieve. And for me to describe that, I want to draw your attention to the TSM guiding principles, some specific language in those guiding principles. So I'm not going to bore you by reading this whole thing, but I do want to underscore some of the key phrases to give you a flavor of what the industry is trying to achieve. So the members of the Mining Association of Canada say, and I quote, "Our role is to responsibly meet society's needs for minerals, metals, and energy products." And the last sentence of that first paragraph says that we believe our opportunities to contribute and thrive in the economies in which we operate must be earned through a demonstrated commitment to sustainable development. The concept is to build honesty, transparency, and integrity with the communities of interest with which the Canadian mining industry works. So the ambitious objective is to demonstrate leadership worldwide, so to be assessed against international best practice. So to demonstrate leadership worldwide by involving communities, proactively supporting dialogue on mining operations at the mine site level, conducting all facets of the business with excellence, transparency, and accountability, and protecting the health and safety of employees, contractors, and the communities where mines are located. With respect to the environment in particular, the commitment is a strong one. It's seeking to minimize the impact of our operations on the environment and biodiversity through all stages of development, from the exploration right through the closure phases of the mine cycle. And I would also, in this context, like to emphasize their last three commitments on the page of their guiding principles. So I also want to, in this context, emphasize the links between the industry and the local communities. And I draw your attention to the last 3 points on the page. They publicly commit to support the capacity of communities to participate in opportunities provided by the industry, to respond to community priorities and needs through all stages of mining, and to provide lasting benefits to local communities in terms of the economic, environmental, social, educational, and healthcare standards of those communities. Before we turn to the nuts and bolts of their TSM program, just a quick word on who is the Mining Association of Canada. They have been in existence since 1935 and are the recognized voice of Canada's mining industry. The companies in the association are base metal and precious metal producers, producers of metallurgical coal, and also producers of industrial minerals. The members of the association produce the large majority of Canadian mineral output, something on the order of 85 to 90% of total Canadian mineral output. Companies are also involved in the full chain of mineral production, including smelting, refining, semi-fabrication, and also suppliers and services to the mining industry. So when the association in Canada adopted this initiative, it was not a small matter, and it's significant that such a broad range of Canada's minerals and metals sector took on the obligations that I am about to describe. Now, if you think about sustainable mining, one of the comments that some people will make is that, well, the industry is not really serious, and this is just a nice window dressing to pretend that they're working sustainably, but they're really not. And the Mining Association was aware of that perspective. I want to talk for a minute about how they are addressing perhaps some of those cynical views about how the mining industry interprets sustainable development. So the 3 key words for them are on this slide: accountability, transparency, and credibility. With respect to accountability, assessments are conducted at the facility level, not at the large corporate level, but at the very specific operational level, the mine site, and these assessments are independently verified. Transparency, those assessments are publicly reported. You can go to the website of the Mining Association, which is mining.ca, and read the reports against each of the indicators that I'm going to be describing. And with respect to credibility, the association has created what they have called a community of interest panel. And that panel is comprised of groups outside the mining industry who may have very different views and perspectives about how the mining industry should operate. But they are invited to bring their perspectives in a very concrete way to the operations of the TSM program. And the Community of Interest Advisory Panel is invited by the industry to challenge what they are doing and to encourage continual improvement in the application of TSM. So I'd like to spend a couple of minutes to describe in a bit more detail what the Community of Interest Advisory Panel is. As you can see from this slide, it's comprised of people from a wide range of different groups who consider that they are affected by mining. And these groups were identified in the Canadian context, but I think most will be very familiar to you. So you can read the list, but it's Aboriginal people are represented, as are environmental NGOs, local community economic development, social NGOs, who, for example, are either faith-based groups or bring labor perspectives, the finance and investment community, international development community, labor and union perspectives, media and communication perspectives, as well as the industry through selected members of the Mining Association Board of Directors, and also a representative of specifically of the exploration sector as identified by the Prospectors and Developers Association. The advisory panel is comprised of 15 people, the majority of whom are not members of the Mining Association or members of industry. And the panel meets twice a year. There are formal terms of reference for the operation of the panel, which are available on the mining website. There's also formal process to select the members of this 15-person panel. The operating principle in the selection of members is that each member should be a respected senior representative of their community of interest, of their group. So that, for example, on the panel there are 2 representatives of environmental NGOs. Those people do not speak for individual NGOs, but those people as individuals, not as members of the NGO, but as individuals, are highly respected amongst the environmental NGO community. So in other words, each individual member is selected because they can speak with authority about the perspectives of their community, whether it's environment or labor or finance or whichever. All the work of the Community of Interest panel, minutes of meetings, progress reports, assessment reports, are all publicly available on the Mining Association website. So now I've described the principles and I've described the mechanism for management of the initiative. Let's now focus in on the specific details of how the performance measurement system works. The program has defined 3 areas of focus. They are environmental stewardship, communities and people, and energy efficiency and greenhouse gas emissions. And these 3 focus areas can change over time. And as I will be describing later, they are introducing 2 new focus areas. Under each of those 3 focus areas, there are protocols in each of 7 different areas that are listed on this slide. So that, for example, and I will not list them all, but for example, under environment stewardship, there is specific measurement of the extent to which tailings management is being done well. Under communities and people, there is a management protocol for safety and health management. And under energy efficiency, there's a protocol with respect to energy use at the operational level of each site. So let's look at each of these focus areas and protocols in a little bit more detail. And what I would like to emphasize as I describe these is that each of these areas of activity and individual mining operations is measured. And that's what this is all about. It's measuring how well the companies are doing at the mine site in each of the 4, 7, I think there's 23 different aspects of running a mining operation. I will take you through an example in a moment of how the measurement would be done. But for example, you can see here that under, let's say, safety and health, there will be measurement of how well the mining company at the site level is managing safety and health, training, behavior, and culture. Likewise, under environmental stewardship, under the tailings management focus area, there is measurement of the quality of the tailings management system that is in place at the mine site. And under energy efficiency, for example, there is a management system about how well at the mine site level the company is managing energy use and whether it has in place energy use and greenhouse gas emissions management system. So for each of these 23 areas of the mining operation, as identified in TSM, there is a rating system. And it's this rating system that is published. Let's look at the rating system. So I think this system is actually quite intuitive and logical. So for each of those 23 areas, the performance by the company at the site level is given a rating. It can be a not very good rating, or it can be a what I would describe as a world-class rating. So if you read the interpretation of each of these grades, almost like school grades, if you will, they range from excellence and leadership, that is to say, the industry worldwide could look at that company's operation and say, yes, that is best in class. Ranging all the way through to level C, which says they have no management systems to manage that particular area, one of those 20. They tend to react to problems instead of being proactive. They may have procedures, but they're not part of their overall management systems at the mine site. So I'd like to give you an example to illustrate this. I mentioned that there were 23 different aspects of mining operation under, I think it's 7 different focus areas. One of the focus areas that has been defined, for example only, is safety and health. So if you think back to the slide I put up a couple of minutes ago with the 23 boxes of areas, 5 of them fall under safety and health. And they are policy, commitment, and accountability, planning, implementation, and operation, training, behavior, and culture, monitoring, reporting, and performance, all related to safety and health at the operational level. So for each of those 5 areas under safety and health, a report card is done every year, and this is what the report card means. You only get a C under the assessment if you have no safety and health performance targets established for employees at the operation. For each of those 5 areas, the assessment is an A if it meets the criteria that's stated under A. And I'll just quickly read it. So performance targets included for contractors, not just employees. Management of the facility is involved in reviewing and improving performance related to the targets for safety and health. So not just the Safety and Health Committee on site, but the management on site. Performance results are communicated to employees and contractors in respect of safety and health. And the facility has not had a fatality in the reporting year. And finally, in my illustration, a AAA rating, the best rating, is assigned if the following criteria are met: that the site has a continual improvement performance target, and those are consistently met over a period of at least 3 or 4 years. It's fatality-free over a 4-year period, and the facility's safety and health performance is externally audited. So I hope from my example you can get an idea of the logic of the rating system and how that is applied to each of the 23 areas of operation within the 3 focus areas that I've described. So here's an overview of the overall system. Every year, every company who is a member of the Mining Association of Canada does a self-assessment and rates itself according to AAA through C for each of those 23 areas. Next level is external verification. Every 3 years, the company who is participating in this is subject to an external verification of their self-assessment. And this would be done by an independent, outside expert or company. For example, KPMG has done some of them, who can go into the site and validate whether the self-assessments are accurate or reasonable in their opinion. The third level is after the external verification, the chief executive officer of the company must sign off and publicly assure that the verification is accepted. Finally, the Community of Interest Advisory Panel that I described earlier does a post-verification review. They select each year 2 to 3 companies that have gone through the external verification, and the Community of Interest Panel visits that to verify whether the TSM program is being administered at the company level according to the program criteria as I have been describing them. So this Community of Interest Panel does a post-verification even of the external audit. I want to just make a couple of other important points. So I mentioned that there's 3 areas of focus. In Canada, they're in process of adding 2 new areas of focus. One of them is water management, which might be of particular interest in the Mongolian context where water resources are a scarce commodity. I'm not going into detail here, but you will notice that there are 4 areas of water management that will be measured under TSM. Water governance, operational management, catchment level water management, and water stewardship reporting and disclosures. In addition, the association has adopted a commitment under TSM related to human rights. And so the statement that you can clearly read is that their companies commit to implementing a human rights and security approach consistent with the voluntary principles on security and human rights, and is based on a determination of risk at facilities that they control. So as I mentioned at the beginning, this program is a program of the Industry Association. And the Industry Association imposes certain criteria in order for any other country or any other jurisdiction to use the Canadian TSM model. And there's a formal letter of agreement that is signed between the Mining Association of Canada and the Mining Association in any other country that may wish to adopt the TSM model. So if, for example, the Mongolian National Mining Association made a decision that they wanted to adopt, and they and their members obviously wanted to adopt this TSM performance measurement system, they would have to sign a written agreement with the Mining Association of Canada to ensure that there is something in place for each of the 7 components that I have been describing. There would need to be, in Mongolia, for example, a set of guiding principles, a set of performance indicators, reporting of results at the site level, a process of independent verification by an outside auditor, for example, public reporting. There would need to be a community of interest advisory body of the sort that I described before, and in addition, adopting TSM would have to be a condition of membership in the association for any of the members, in this case, of the Mongolian Mining Association. Now, of course, the context for sustainable mining is one thing in Canada, and the context for sustainable mining is different in Mongolia. And everyone understands that. So it is not the case that the detailed guiding principles or the detailed indicators or the detailed structure of the advisory body would need to be the same in Mongolia or Canada. Only that there would need to be something that corresponds to each of those 7 areas. So to wrap up then, what are some of the results that the industry in Canada is demonstrating as a consequence of adopting a TSM? And I will only show you a couple of these in the interest of time. And you can look at all of this on the association website. I just want to give you a couple of examples. So you remember we talked about the 5 areas, and we talked about, in this case, this is safety and health assessment. And measurement under the TSM has been going on in Canada for this focus area since 2012. So I'm showing you 3 different areas of results, 3 different years of results. You can see that the Canadian companies say, for example, that the large majority of them have very strong result, level AAA, in terms of training, behavior, and culture, in terms of the management of safety and health at the mine site. And when it comes, for example, to actual safety and health performance, incidents and fatalities, for example, the results aren't quite as good, but the self-assessment has been improving over time, and the majority come into the AA category, not the AAA category. So that's safety and health. Let me show you one more set of results. This is the focus area, energy use and greenhouse gas emissions management. And what you can see is that over the years 2013 through 2016, the present greenhouse gas emissions management systems has not really improved. And you can also see that actual meeting of greenhouse gas emissions target is, by comparison, relatively low in the Canadian mining industry, but they are measuring it, and it is slowly improving. So there's growing interest around the world in TSM. And this slide lists the countries that are actually formal members, and that includes Canada, Finland, Botswana, and Argentina. And just announced in December, the Philippines has decided to implement this in their country. A number of other countries, ranging from Australia through the United States, through this list of countries here, have at least expressed an interest in trying to adopt TSM in some form. That interest having been expressed either by the government of the country or by their national mining association.